again and welcome to Shed Talk, my weekly magazine video series looking at the keeping, breeding and showing of cage birds, with a particular focus as usual on the exhibition style Budgerigar. Before we start the episode, a quick explanation on last week's episode that unfortunately was published and then unpublished and then republished again. And in case for those of you that were wondering why it suddenly vanished and then reappeared, there was as part of the video I used some music that I was reasonably informed was free to use, and so I used it. Unfortunately, within about 10 minutes of the video being published, there was a copyright hit on the music. There was something I hadn't done when I used the music, which I didn't quite understand, but anyway, it meant that the video couldn't be monetized. So in other words, I wouldn't get anything when you people viewed it. So with that in mind, whilst the money is not desperately important to me, it was going to be, it would be nice to receive something from YouTube for my efforts and time put into producing the video. So I took it down, re-edited the music, used some different music and then republished it. That's the reason why it was missing for a short while, and I do apologise for those of you who perhaps like the original and may have commented on it. I do not know if I lost those comments or not. Anyway, that's a quick explanation for that. So in this video there's two things. We will have the first of the beginner's guide to Budgerigars, so an introduction to Budgerigars. But before that, what I thought we'd do is have a run round of all of the breeding cages, both in here and outside in the Fife flight, and have a look at the Fifes and see how those are getting on. Right, let's begin in here with cage number 1 as usual. So we are at cage number 1, and this is a pair that are now on their third round. We've had some, I suppose, hit and miss with this pair in terms of the quality of the birds that they produced. We had a look at some of those, or the last round, in the last episode. So yeah, they're a little bit hit and miss, I suppose. Anyway, we've got what I think is a really nice, in terms of style, and you might remember in the last episode I did mention that I need to breed some better style into my birds, particularly the ones that are I think my better in terms of feather and size and the overall look of the face don't have a particularly great style to them. They tend to lack a bit of, they tend to lean over a little bit and have a little bit of a hinge tail and that sort of thing. Anyway, so I'm trying to get a bit more style in some of the birds so that I can start to breed out some of the faults on those other birds. Anyway, this cockbird, which is a yellow face opaline cockbird that has a really nice style about him, and I've paired him to a opaline cinnamon grey-green hen, and they're not, like I say, they're now on their third round, and so hen has laid 6 eggs, of which I know one, and you can see it in the short clip here. One of them is definitely full. Not sure yet about the others. If by the time the video comes out I've had a chance to candle all the other eggs and we have a see, I will put it up on the screen as to the number of those that are full. But we know definitely that one of those is full. So with any luck, touch wood, there'll be a few more full eggs in there, and we will get some more youngsters off of this pair that we can consider for next year. This will be the last round for this pair. It's probably going to be the last round for all of the birds because I do want to start splitting them. Right, so anyway, that is pair number 1, third round, 6 eggs, which one is definitely full. Right, let's move on then to cage number 2, which is the Lutino cockbird. Right, cage number 2 then. So cage number 2, this has been a bit of a I suppose I don't really want to call it a problem cage, but it's not been the most successful cage that we've had. You might remember in their first round, the hen didn't feed. We did manage to save one of the chicks of the two that hatched, but that was about as far as we got. So that chick was moved and reared by another pair. They're now on their second round. Now we know the cockbird can fill eggs because we got them in the first round. We had two, like I say, two that hatched, of which one wasn't fed. But this round's not looking particularly great. So she laid an egg, or she laid two eggs, and they were both destroyed. So I'm not quite sure why. And you might remember I then moved one of the eggs as it was laid. She's now laid a further 6 eggs, and they certainly the earlier of those eggs, of those 6, she hasn't destroyed them this time round. I did put a marble in there. You can see it in the short clip here. So, while she hasn't destroyed those eggs, they actually all look clear to me. Although certainly the earlier eggs look clear. So it's a little bit of a. I'm not sure whether the cockbird missed it this time round or what's happened, but it might be that the last couple of eggs might be full. So we will wait and see. But again, I get this, like I say, I'm preparing to close the boxes down. So this would be their last round anyway. So I don't know. Hopefully the cockbird will have filled the last couple of eggs, but that's more hope than the way the eggs actually look at the moment. So anyway, there we go. That's cage number 2. Cage number 3 is now empty, so we'll move straight on to cage number 4. Okay, cage number 4. This is quite a nice cobalt cockbird that we've paired to a light green hen, and so far they've produced 2 chicks, which we took a very brief look at the end of the last episode whilst they were still in the cage. They are still in there. They will be removed shortly, and I will get some. I'll pop those into the breeding cage at some stage. Sorry, breeding cage, into the show cage at some stage, and we will take a look at those probably in the next episode in a little bit more. We'll have a look at them in a bit more detail. Anyway, so they produced in that round there was a cobalt and a sky blue. The hen has started laying again. So far she's laid 2 eggs. Still a bit early for me to see if either of those 2 eggs are clear or not, are full or not. But we will let this hen continue to lay. And given that we got some birds off the first round, so touch wood, we will get some more full eggs in the second round. And hopefully the 2 youngsters, which one of them has certainly been going back into the nest box, aren't disturbing the eggs too much. Anyway, they won't be much longer before I will be taking those out. So that is cage number 4, another pair that are doing reasonably well for me, and that they've started laying again, and we know that the cockbird can fill eggs. So with any luck we will get some more. Right, that's cage number 4. Let's move on to cage number 5, which was a cage that I wanted split, but the hen has started laying again, and they're now on their 4th round. So let's see how they're getting on with that 4th round. So cage number 5, we've got a normal light green cockbird that we paired to a Lutino hen, and they've probably the first 3 rounds, I think they've produced something like 1 or 2 chicks per round, and this is the pair where the hen sits a little bit tight. I was going to split this pair. Unfortunately, she started laying again, so I decided to leave her. It looks to me as if this round are going to be all clear. So she's laid 6 eggs. One of them's a tiny little egg, so yeah, so that one obviously will be clear. But the others, I'm not hopeful again that they're going to be clear, and it's probably a good job that I'm thinking about splitting all the pairs, because I think they are coming, they feel like they've all gone out of condition at roughly the same time, given the number of clear eggs that I'm getting in the remaining cages. So they do all look clear. I'm going to give it another week just to double check. If they are clear, what I'm going to do is remove the cockbird from here and then gradually remove the eggs, give the hen a rest, and she can go back into the main flight. I know some people, and I think I've mentioned this in previous videos, there is a view that with a lot of people would say that 3 rounds is probably enough, and you don't want to overtax the hen by letting her go more than that. I've also known some quite experienced breeders, and one very experienced breeder that I respect very, very much, who has, when I first started out, and continued to mention it to me, that you know, if the hen is still breeding, still going to nest, still producing full eggs, and the quality of the chicks are good, then why split them? His view is that, you know, you split them, you might never get that hen to lay and produce another full egg. So while she's happy in the nest box, and some hens are very happy in the nest box and just want to keep going, others aren't. But while they're happy in the nest box, producing the quality of the chicks you want, then just let them keep breeding. Let me know your thoughts on that. I myself, generally I only like to give them 3 rounds, but you know, if they keep going and the hen seems quite happy, in this case I think she has gone past it, given that the eggs appear to be clear, then I probably would let them carry on, particularly if they're youngsters, or if there's something off that particular pair that I would like to get. Anyway, that is cage number 5. Let's move on to the final cage then, cage number 6. And finally then, cage number 6. You might remember this was a pair that had been doing absolutely nothing since I put them in the breeding cage. And in the last episode, I think it was, I said I was preparing to split them. Well, the weekend when I was going to actually begin splitting this pair up, take the cockbird out, close up the nest box, open the nest box up, and lo and behold, the hen has just started laying. So we will let this hen continue to lay. I think so far she's laid 5 eggs. I think it is. It might be 6 by the time this video comes out. So the first ones look like they're clear, but we'll wait and see whether any of the others are full. We know the cockbird. I know this cockbird has filled eggs in previous years, but he is getting on a little bit now, so it might be that he's a bit past it, but we'll find out. We'll see if any of these eggs are full. He's very protective of the hen, sits outside the nest box, does all that sort of stuff. So we might just get 1 round off of this pair, and if we get a couple of final chicks off of this cockbird, I will be quite pleased. So that's a full roundup of all of the cages, from cage number 1 through to cage number 6. Well, shortly we will nip out into the Finch and Fife flight and have a look at how they are getting on out there, and see whether pair number 1 has started their second round yet. Well, before we pop outside and have a look at the Fife to see how the breeding out there is going on, just a couple of things really. First of all, I'd just like to give a big congratulations to Alan and Gina Adams on winning Best in Show at the Budgerigar Club Show last weekend. So big congratulations to all the winners there, but particularly those 2 very nice birds from what I can see of the pictures. Unfortunately I couldn't make the show, but what I could see of the photographs, you know, a very, very deserved winner. And my understanding is they put out a very, very strong team. So again, congratulations to those, and congratulations to anybody who won any of the awards at the Budgerigar Club Show. It was the 100th year of the show, or the 100th year of the Budgerigar Society. So yeah, so the 100th anniversary. So like I say, big congratulations to all those of you who took part, took the time to show birds, and those of you that had success. well done. Again, as always, if you enjoy these videos, don't forget to give them a big thumbs up. And if you're not yet a subscriber, please do subscribe to the channel. And if you want early notifications, do hit the bell icon. And of course, don't forget, I always say this, if you want to comment on anything you see in this video, or if there's anything you'd like to see in future videos, then do leave it in the comment section below. Most welcome. And I do try to read all of them and try to respond to everybody who comments. Right, let's pop outside and have a look at those Fifes. So we have made it out here into the Finch and Fife flight. It was a bit touch and go actually, because when I was about to come out, literally about to come out and start filming this little section of the episode, it absolutely tipped it down. It would come over really, really black, and it just rained and rained and rained, and I didn't think I was going to be able to make it. Fortunately, it's cleared up and brightened up just as quickly as it got dark and started raining. So I will try and get this bit done a little bit quicker than I might have normally wanted to, because I am worried it's going to suddenly start raining again. And out here, unfortunately, there isn't enough room inside this shed for me, the birds and the camera. So the camera has to sit outside. Anyway, so in here, in the cage behind me, so what I suppose we refer to as cage number 1, the first pair we put down, we've got 3 youngsters in there. They're developing reasonably well. Mum or Dad is definitely still feeding at least one of the youngsters. I saw that earlier on today, and maybe feeding the others. So I'm going to give those a few more days before I move them into a holding cage. I just want to make absolutely certain that they are feeding themselves okay. I've not seen any of the chicks actually picking up. Mum is now sat on 3 eggs. She laid as per normal. She laid and missed one. You may have seen we popped them into the box. I've now set those back under her. The third egg was very bright blue, so I guessed it was the last one, but I did give it a day as she'd only laid 2, or only laid 3. So, but it definitely was the last egg that she laid. So, but she's now sat on those. I haven't checked to see if they're clear or full yet, but we will do that in a few days. The other pair, the pair number 2, so they have now got 3 chicks. Last time we looked at them, they had 4. Unfortunately, one of them didn't survive. I did say that there were 2 of them that hatched a day late, and it was one of the ones that hatched a day late that didn't make it. And I guess it was just couldn't compete enough with the other 2, with the older 2 and its sibling of the same age. But the 3 in there look good and look very well. So I'm now hoping that they'll raise those off, and we will get one more round off of this pair number 2. Right, as I say, short and sweet out here. Hopefully I'll make it back in before it starts raining, but I'll meet you back inside. So welcome to part 1 of Budgerigar Basics, and we're going to look at a few of the I suppose, like I say, the basics around the keeping, breeding of Budgerigars, which will just be really for those people who are literally just getting into it, and is aimed at complementing my normal videos. So, so first of all, I suppose the place to start is the Budgerigar. So Budgerigar or Budgie, I know in some places, particularly in North America, it tends to be referred to either the parakeet or common parakeet. Parakeet just refers to that the type of bird that the Budgerigar belongs to. So the correct name is Budgerigar. It's also sometimes referred to as the undulating parakeet or the zebra parakeet, and that really relates to the markings across the head and down the back, those the black and white markings that we see running from the sort of just behind the eye and down the back. So that's why it's sometimes referred to by those terms. So quite often, particularly in older literature, and I still find it online, the term Budgerigar is often referred to as a mispronunciation of an Aboriginal word which actually meant good or good to eat, and so that's one possibility of the origin behind the word budgerigar. We do know that it was generally accepted that John Gould, who introduced the budgerigar to the United Kingdom, named it, or he used the term Budgerigar. So we certainly know from 1840s that was where the name came from. In terms of the Aboriginal background to the name, there's some suggestion that it meant good to eat or good food. It's unclear whether that meant that the Aboriginals were catching budgerigars and eating them, or whether they were just following the budgerigars, because budgerigars would commute over large distances to find waterholes, and if you followed them, found a waterhole, there would be good food at the waterhole. That sort of idea, I suppose. So it's unclear which way round it meant, or unclear indeed if that is the original origin of the name Budgerigar. So in the wild, they're an Australian parakeet, and interestingly enough, they're the only parakeet of the genus that they are from. So they're a single genus, and it's called monotypic, I think it's called. Bear with me. So yeah, the only member of their genus. Their closest relation is probably the lorry parakeets, but even them are quite distantly related. So, and in Australia, they are a small bird, probably somewhere around 18 centimetres long, including the length of the tail. So they're a small greenish bird with a long tail, and they tend to move in quite large flocks in search of seeds and, like I say, water. And they tend to be a very arid type bird, so they live in arid or fairly dry parts of Australia. And they would normally breed following the rainy season when there's plenty of seed around. So they are mainly a seed-eating parakeet. Of course, since they've been domesticated, since, like I say, the 1840s, since they've been domesticated, they've undergone some quite dramatic changes, and I suppose now, if I was to try and generalise, so we've still got the wild type of Budgerigar in Australia. There are what we often refer to as pet type Budgerigars, which again are bigger than the Australian, much bigger than the Australian bird, or bigger than the Australian bird. And then we've got the exhibition style Budgerigar, which indeed are much bigger, much broader, and have completely changed in terms of their overall appearance to the wild type Budgerigar. They're much less flighty, much more static type bird, much heavier in feather than the wild type. And then finally, more recently, we've sort of reverted back to the wild type with the introduction of the Budgerigars of colour, and they're sometimes called miniature Budgerigars. So these are much smaller, much more finer in feather, and much more, or resemble much more the original Budgerigar from Australia, although still again, on my understanding, they're still a bit bigger than the wild type Budgerigar. So generally that's a little bit about the Budgerigar, and of course from that original grass green coloured Budgerigar, we've now got multitudes of colours and varieties of Budgerigar, and some of that is because there's been some quite, since early on, there's been an organisation that sort of oversaw the breeding of Budgerigars, or certainly people who bred Budgerigars could be a member of, and that sort of meant that the perpetuation of any new varieties in new colours was more likely to catch on than in some other forms of birds. So in terms of sexing the Budgerigars and working out which is male and female, generally, and I say this, generally as adult birds it is fairly simple in that the adult cockbirds will have a blue colouring to the cere, which is the area just above the top of the beak where the nostrils are. That will be a sort of sky blue, that sort of colour, fairly, well, a bit darker than sky blue, so fairly bluish in colour. And the female, particularly when she's in breeding condition, that area will be brown and can appear quite rough, whereas in the cockbird it can appear quite smooth. What I would say is some hens, when they're out of condition or getting a bit older, will show blue across that area, but that blue will be much paler, and will also probably contain a fair amount of white, particularly around the nostril area. So if it's a very pale blue and white, then it's likely to be a hen that is out of condition, as opposed to a cockbird. The cockbird's very distinctive blue. And I say that's generally, certainly in terms of the hen will either have that very pale blue mixed with white, or the sort of chocolate brown colour in that area across the top of the beak. Some varieties of cockbirds will actually have a pink area across the top of that, and that's particularly true of some of the recessive pieds and the albinos and lutino birds. They will have a pink area across there. So if it's a pinky colour or a blue or a darkish blue, then that will be a cockbird. If it's light blue mixed with white or that chocolate brown colour, then it's likely to be a hen. And finally then, I mentioned earlier that they can come in a variety of colours and types, or colours and variety. Generally speaking, people refer to the Budgerigars in terms of the colour fitting into one or two series. I say again, generally. So whether they are a green series bird or a blue series bird, and this really is defined by the bulk of the colour of the body. So it will either be, the colour will either be green or it will be blue. But in reality, the series reflects the ground colour or the base colour of the bird, which is either yellow in the green series bird or white in the blue series bird. So if you look at a picture of a blue series bird, you will see that it is devoid of any of the yellow pigment, and that yellow pigment is also missing from the body, and hence the blue colour showing through. In the original green series bird, there's yellow around the face and in the wing markings, and that yellow shows through onto the body, mixing with the blue and making the green colour. So, you know, we all learn very early on at school, don't we, that blue and yellow make green. So that's the green series birds. And I say that generally, of course, as with all these things, you know, there is an exception to the rule, and that exception tends to be the yellow face, which is, you know, looks to some extent green series, and it's got yellow in it, and indeed in some, you know, double factor yellow faces, they will appear very much like a normal green series bird. So the yellow faces and the golden faces, however, they will have yellow on the face and then blue to the body. And then there are some varieties where the top of the head is white, whereas the rest of the face may well continue to be yellow in the green series bird. So, but generally speaking, we refer to the birds as either being blue series or green series. Right, well that's enough for part one of this Budgerigar Basics, and we will be back in about a month for part two. Well, that is just about all we've got time for in this episode. Before I go, I just wanted to find out what your thoughts were in terms of my Budgies Back to Basics bit within this episode. I was wondering whether I ought to perhaps separate it out from the main video and place it in a separate bit of the channel, so you know where everybody can find the entire series as I produce them. I could also continue to include it in one of the main episodes, but just have a separate section where the beginners or Budgerigar Basics is held with just that section. It's not particularly difficult for me to do, so I could publish it separately as well. Let me know your thoughts in the comments if you think that might be a good idea, and if enough people think it is, I will do that. Right, as I say, that is all we've got time for, so until the next one, as always, do stay safe, enjoy your birds.